everyone. Welcome to another episode of Xraised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm your host, Miles, and I hope you stay with us today as we dive into a conversation that every future facing law school, firm, and educator needs to hear. We have two brilliant women reshaping how the next generation of lawyers learns, researches, and thrives. First on is an award winning barrister whose AI powered research platform is changing what precision actually means in legal work. The other one is a leading educator and digital innovation strategist who's redefining what the modern law classroom looks like. Together, they sit at the intersection of legal education and legal innovation, which frankly is exactly where the future is being built. Here's the CEO of MiAI Law, Laina Chan, and joining us for the first time is LeighAnne Thompson, the Associate Director for Digital Innovation at Seattle University School of Law. Hello, Laina. Welcome to Xraised, LeighAnne.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Thank
We're
you for
very
coming
excited
here.
to have you, Leanne.
I agree. And thank you, ladies, for gracing our show today, especially this conversation forms part of our mini series. And this chapter is all about raising AI ready lawyers. What should students be learning? How should they be thinking? And what are the practical skills that truly prepare them for the advanced legal environment ahead? So let me start with the foundations. In your view, what's the first practical skill law students today absolutely must develop if they want to thrive in an AI accelerated legal world? I mean, something that will matter regardless of what tools they end up using.
That is a great question. And interestingly, if you had asked me this even 10 years ago, I probably would have given you the same answer. I think it's critical thinking, right? Students need to know how to critically engage with information and evaluate the information. And I think that becomes all the more true as we're working in this AI accelerated environment where they're working with, outputs that they have to really, again, critically engage with and evaluate and validate.
Right.
We agree, right, Miles?
Mm-hmm.
We've been
Yeah.
saying that critical thinking is really important. But then, Leanne, in order to be able to critically analyze the outputs, you have to have a foundational knowledge of law, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, so the
absolutely.
what we have been grappling with me and Dr. Bryden Wang, who has been on this podcast as well. He's at the University of Queensland Centre for Policy Futures. And we're working on this piece on how do you get the students to get that base level of knowledge so that they can apply the critical thinking to it. Because I don't think you can critically think if you have no understanding of the law. And that's also what I was discussing with another professor from the University of Adelaide yesterday. So I don't know the answer, and I'm hoping Leanne can shed some light on that.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I have the answer, but I am really fortunate to work with faculty colleagues who are truly exceptional in teaching the rigors of the foundational, legal reasoning, critical thinking. Um, and then we're able to layer the technology and integrate the technology into those foundational skills, right? But we want the students to be getting those foundational skills with
First.
and without technology.
Yeah. Right.
But does the university teach the foundational skills first before they allow the introduction of any technology, or is the technology available right from the beginning?
Well, I think that's changing rapidly. If you had asked me that 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I would have said, yes, we're teaching the foundational skills before the technology. But at this point, the technology is so pervasive that the students are coming to us. They're already using these tools in their day-to-day life. And we're certain that they will start, using the tools for their legal education. And so, I think we have to shift. I think we have to make sure that the students have a baseline understanding now as they start law school with respect to the technology so that they know where it works well and where it doesn't work well, and they can leverage the technology responsibly. I can give you an example. I had a student come in to me. She's a 1L, so she's in her first year, and she was very excited about how she could use one of these tools to basically shortcut reading her cases because she didn't want to be reading for hours a night.
She did not
And,
do
as we
reading.
sat down and talked about the limitations of the technology, she realized that she was doing herself a huge disservice, right, by not
Yeah.
reading the cases. And I
Mhm.
think that's what students need to understand is that, yes, these are powerful tools, but they can't shortcut the educational journey.
No, they can't. But they can point you to the right case that you need to read. But once you're pointed to that right case, you have to read it.
And then you have to make sure it's the right case.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Right. So I like how you guys frame it, critical thinking, and of course, understanding the law as the foundation. And hearing that, it feels like we're not just talking about using tools. We're talking about a mindset shift. As you said, just like just like in any industry, adapting new tech only works when people really understand why they're using it, not just how to use it. And law students are really stepping into that same dynamic. And LeighAnne, speaking of mindset, you work directly with students navigating this huge shift. Are you seeing any change in how they mentally approach legal problems now that AI is part of their toolkit? And how do you guide them toward healthy habits rather than, relying on shortcuts?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the last couple of years, I've seen some hesitancy from students. They were hesitant to use the tools because they were afraid of being accused of cheating, or they, had read all the headlines about these tools making
Mhm.
up fake cases. And I've really seen a shift now towards students realizing these tools are here to stay. They want to learn more. They're much more curious, right? They want to know how the technology works and how they can use it. And I think of it a lot like traditional legal research. I've always seen students get onto, the big research platforms as soon as they get an assignment and they start typing words into that global search bar. And then they get 10,000 words back or 10,000 documents back. They
Mhm.
don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to filter them. It's overwhelm. But once you teach them how to do the search and retrieval in any database, suddenly they're confident, right? They're getting much better results. It's the exact same thing I'm seeing with the mind shift with AI.
Yeah.
If they're just blindly putting questions into these tools and getting garbage answers, that's not useful. But as they get curious and understand how the technology works and how to use it and create better prompts with that critical thinking, I'm seeing a much more willingness to engage with the tools.
Mhm. Right.
But
And
that's really interesting what Leanne's just said, because I was catching up with a friend of mine, as I said, from the University of Adelaide last night. And basically, Australian students are where American students were 2 years ago. They're really scared of the technology. They're scared of being accused of cheating. They say they don't want to engage with it, and the universities are not giving them access to it anyway. So,
Mhm.
and also in Australia, there is no teaching tool that can be used to help foster the law students. Like we have in the high school public education system, we have the New South Wales EduChat, but there's nothing like that currently for the law school.
Right.
And I don't think, I said to her, but are the law schools even open to it? They're not really open to it right now. We're 2 years behind.
I see.
That's fascinating. And what about the industry? Like what do the firms say and legal organizations? Are they
Yeah,
expecting us
so
to?
I hope Jessica doesn't mind that I'm quoting her, but she told me that the firms are telling the university that they expect is that it's the university's responsibility to make the students AI ready, AI
Right.
job ready.
Right.
But
Mhm.
they haven't yet worked out how to do it, I don't think. I
Well,
don't
they
think
have
they've
to.
worked out yet how to do it. Well, they don't have a tool yet anyway, right? And so she
Mhm.
says at the moment, all we have are the really expensive tools, but or the chat GPT. But there's no tool that's really fit for purpose that has been developed specifically with the intention of teaching law students.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, but we have in the high school public school system this New South Wales EduChat. So the students can ask it questions, but instead of the chatbot answering and just giving you the answer, it guides you on how to think, what issues to look at, how to explore the issue that you're trying to get an answer to. And they also have a platform where you can, well, the same platform where you can upload your assignment into it and it will mark it for you and give you ideas on how to make it better, which is really what's needed for the law school.
I see. Well, maybe that's going to be
Interesting.
your next platform, Lena. Let's see.
Well, only if they want to. I'm not going to force it down their throat.
Okay, so search and retrieval, LeighAnne, teaching students to actually slow down and maybe interrogate outputs. Because when you automate something, you still need people who know how to check whether the automation makes sense And that discipline really is the difference between efficiency and disaster. So, moving on, Lena, you often deal with cases involving millions of documents, highly technical disputes, and constantly shifting regulatory frameworks. What skills do you think the next generation of lawyers must develop to thrive in that kind of complexity?
It's the same skills as we said, the critical thinking, but I think it's 100%, 1000% okay to use the technology to create the subset of documents, etc., that you need to actually get on top of. So I've had cases before when I've been the person sitting there and trawling through. There was one case, it was like, I don't know, 500,000 documents, and I had to manually sift through them all to to identify the 50,000 documents or whatever, the subset that I said was relevant. But I don't know whether I developed any special skill because I was able to throw away 400,000 documents. You know, the skill is really being able to critically analyze the 50,000 or that I thought were relevant, and then from that cull what is really, or maybe it was from 50,000 to 2,000, something like that. That's probably more realistic. But junior lawyers now, when we go to Australian conferences, they keep saying, I want to be the person. I want to be the person to have to cull from 50,000 down to 2,000 relevant documents. But why? I don't think the skill comes from being able to throw away the garbage. The skill comes from being able to critically analyze the 2,000 documents that are really relevant and then work out how they fit within your case strategy.
Makes
It's the
sense.
same with the research, right? You need to be able to identify the case on point. What skill does it bring to you that you have to, when I do a search, I don't get 10,000 returns. I might get 2,000 case returns if I'm using LexisNexis, for example, when we're doing it the old way, the keyword searches, and then I would keep fine-tuning until I get about 100 cases, 80 to 90, 80 to 100 cases, and then I will sift through every single one of those to see what I would have, what the case on point is. But now when I use my AI, it will direct me directly to the important cases on point. And then I immediately go to the cases and read them. I have to read them. But LeighAnne, do you think I've lost something in the fact that I don't have to read, I don't have to go from 1,000 to 80 to the bottom, to the most critical five? I don't know. Does it really matter? I mean, I know the law students or the graduates are really worried that they don't have that. They won't have to do that if they're using the right tools. But I just think that they're maybe misunderstanding what is actually the skill of being a lawyer. How you actually develop as a lawyer is to actually be able to critically analyze the key documents, the key cases, and then work out together how they fit together in your case theory, develop your case theory, and how you're going to present the case.
Yeah, I mean, I see some parallels between that, traditional legal research and then using these AI tools, right? Because if I have a student who's an expert legal researcher using traditional methods, they know how to go in and use the database to do keyword searches within certain fields,
Yeah.
within a certain subset of documents, within a certain jurisdiction, and they get those 50 to 60 cases back that are most relevant, right? And does that take any more time than, putting a search into a chat? Probably not if you're thinking critically about the prompt that you're putting into that chat for research. So I think there has to be a combination, right? Because if you're using these chat tools for your research, students and attorneys still need to know how to supervise it. Well, how can you supervise it if you don't have those traditional advanced research skills to make sure that you're getting the most authoritative sources and the most relevant sources?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
in our tool, we have made sure you get the most authoritative search, and it's tracked down the whole hierarchy of the courts. But I wonder if it's the ability to, well, actually it's both, LeighAnne. It's because when you have the understanding of the law that you know what are the correct keywords, and then when you have the proper understanding of the law, that's when you understand what the correct prompts are. So yesterday I received a phone call from a judge who was trialing our product off the record, and she had been waiting for a long time for several of her researchers to get her a case on point. And she said it was just stalling. She said, you don't understand how many people I had looking and how many hours they had spent. And they couldn't find me the case on point. So she said, fine, I'm just going to ask my AI. She used the light research mode, which takes 1 minute. So she put in, she knew obviously what prompt to put in. She put it in, it came back, gave the answer, and she goes, the very first case, Laina, the very first case was the case on point that I needed. I had the link to the underlying case. I didn't quite agree with the analysis for her purposes, but it was completely the case on point for her. And so she said, then therefore it allowed me to keep going because she was stalled in her judgment writing from waiting for all her research to find her that one case. And we found it for her in 1 minute.
And I think that's where these tools are so powerful, especially
Yeah.
for students and, even like junior attorneys who maybe aren't familiar with the legal issues and don't know what key terms to be searching for. The
Mhm.
power of these language models, because you don't have to use precise language, right? Because the language model can find relevant sources. So I think as a starting point, the tools are incredibly powerful and time-saving, but students and lawyers still have to be able to check the output,
Right.
Yes.
right? To make sure that it is on point, relevant, still good law.
Mhm.
I have to read them for all my, like when I'm doing whatever I'm doing, it gives me the principle, but then I have to go look at the case to see how the case actually framed it. And
Yeah.
even if it's always accurate, but then it gives me more context, and then I can work out how I can use it in my own case.
Mhm. And what you just said hits home for anyone whose work, especially in fast moving industries, also complexity isn't going away. But the people who learn how to navigate these AI tools without panicking end up being the ones everyone trusts. And so, LeighAnne, let's talk about confidence because that's a skill on its own. How are you helping students build the confidence to question, validate, review, and refine what AI gives them instead of treating it as a final answer?
Yeah, another really good question. I think it kind of ties back into that confidence that Laina and I were just talking about, in terms of the confidence to even use the tools. I think that law school should be a safe place where students can really experiment and use these tools and understand that it is an iterative process, right? Without having opportunities to actually use the tools for various use cases, we can't build that confidence, right? But if we can get the students engaged with the tools and then teaching them how the tool works and where the tools present risks, that really tells the students what they need to do to validate the outputs, right? Like this could be a fake case. I need to validate it. And frankly, all of the headlines in the United States about attorneys misusing these tools and ending up, being sanctioned by the courts is a really good way to teach students what not to do and how to use the tools.
Yeah. And that right there, I would say, is a really powerful skill. I mean, even in my world, whether it's sales data or forecasting, the numbers are only as good as the human who knows how to sanity check them. Like, I guess teaching students productive skepticism might be one of the greatest gifts educators can give them. So, let me wrap this up with a big one for both of you. If you could redesign the very first semester of law school to make students AI ready from day one, what's that one change, LeighAnne, you'd implement immediately? And why would that single shift make such a big difference for the future of legal practice?
Yeah, I think just a very baseline AI literacy. It doesn't have to be extensive for that first semester, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the students need to understand how the technology works so that they can assess the benefits and the risks, right? Because that's really, really all they need in order
Yeah.
to leverage it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe taking it a step further, I also think it's really important for our students to think about the broader societal implications of using these tools and to have that in the back of their mind as they're using the tools. For example, energy consumption, access to legal services and access to justice issues, bias in the underlying data sets, things that will help the student